John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
What do you look for beyond the sea, grasshopper?
That part of me which I know little of. The past out of which I was born.
Then someday you must seek it.
But is it good to seek the past, Master Poe? Does it not rob the present?
If a man dwells on the past, then he robs the present. But if a man ignores the past, he may rob the future. The seeds of our destiny are nurtured by the roots of our past.
Do I look like an egghead?
No, they suit you.
We have a saying in Tibet: if the problem can be solved, there is no use worrying about it. If it can't be solved, worrying will do no good. So stop worrying, Henrik.
You have to leave. You have to leave Tibet, Kunton. Your life is at great risk. Forgive my presumption, but I have made arrangements to get you out, safely. We should leave directly after the enthronement. The Chinese, they would never expect it.
How can I help people if I run away from them? What kind of leader would I be? I have to stay here, Henrik. Serving others is my path to liberation.
And I don't go either.
Why not?
Because you are my path to liberation.
The Buddha said, salvation does not come from the sight of me. It demands strenuous effort and practice. So work hard and seek your own salvation diligently. I am not your son. And I never thought of you as my father. You were much too informal with me for that. Do you ever think about him? And what do you think about?
It's not the conscious thought, really, Condon. It's just always there. When I crossed Tibet, he was with me. When I came to Lhasa, he was with me. When I sit beside you, he's there with me. I can't even imagine how I pictured the world without him in it.
Then you should go home and be his father.
I know.
You finished your job with me. But you have to stay for my enthronement. I want you to see me in all my pomp and glory.
Be a pleasure, my friend.
Hey guys, welcome. This is just a clip that I've added on to this second part of the expansion mechanics. I decided to break it up, as I said in the last one, because it would have been quite long, and it's worthy of doing that, so the main body is a bit less, so people can pace the integration of it. So I hope you gain a lot from the prior to Emotional Mastery theme videos that I released, including the first part related to expansion mechanics, and I hope you gain a lot from this one. So enjoy, guys. Andre out.
Well, there's a lot of manipulation going on.
Yeah.
At various and sundry levels, and there are a lot of hierarchies operating here with the idea of control and manipulation. So it's really kind of looking at everything and reflecting on your own experience. I mean, don't believe anything.
I'd also caution you from joining any groups. I mean, all these people that show up at this rally and this protest and this anti-abortion conclave, they're just getting their strings pulled by some hidden agenda, and it's just so sad to see them innocently walking into being used by some force they're not even aware of.
Yeah, they're getting entangled in the experience. They're getting drawn into the experience without having it. They're having the experience have them. I mean, if you believe in anything. If you believe in something, then you're going to get manipulated by it very, very easily. And it's been said before in many, many sources about the nature of belief. And it's there's one particular reference to the idea of belief. It really has to do with...
I know what it is. It's like prejudice is a labor-saving device. Because if you're prejudiced, you don't have to get to the bottom of something. You don't have to research it and figure it out and think about it.
Well,
so in a
that's
sense,
part of it.
Yeah.
Doesn't this stuff, though, take a lot of belief and a lot of faith?
Well, no, forget about belief, forget about faith. Okay?
How can you do that?
Belief is convincing yourself of something you have yet to know and understand through experience.
Because if you knew it, you wouldn't believe it, you'd know it.
Yeah, in belief, you're placing your life, your attitudes, and your trust in something which has not founded itself in truth within your being, which causes you to be vulnerable. In that state of vulnerability, you can be manipulated, accursed, damned, or can lose your life, all because of belief. You have to know what it is you wish to know. You can simply do that by asking for the understanding and listening to the feelings within you about that.
For example, you have two armies and they're going to go at each other because one is of one religion and one's of another, or one holds a certain belief system and the other another.
What's really going on?
Yeah, or if they got down to the bottom line, which is, isn't it better to make love than war? Why are they doing this? Why are they being manipulated by...
One society is threatening the other with control.
Yeah.
Right.
So they have to establish control. The negotiations break down, and they have no choice.
Right. There's a lot of, like judgment, for instance. Every being has their own way of exploring the idea of their existence. It doesn't mean that you have to live that way yourself, nor does it mean you have to judge the way somebody else is living as invalid. If you're busy judging what they're doing is less than what they could be doing, then you are the one maintaining those effects and those realities in your reality when you focus on them.
You know what? We have a caller who's been calling from Olympia that we should take for just a moment. Kent in Olympia. Hi, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being patient.
You're welcome. Val.
Yes.
There's a book called Illusions by Richard Bach. It's one of my favorite ones. And there's a quote in there: "The mark of your ignorance is of your belief in injustice and tragedy."
Yeah.
And through your experience, one of my challenges right now is looking at that and connection with being of service. Not so much with judgments, but just being of service.
Well, you know what judgment is. Do you understand what the idea of judgment is?
For me, it means prejudice or prejudgment.
Well, it's really choosing what you prefer. You choose what you prefer and let everyone else have the right to live the way they want to, knowing that the way they live has nothing to do with the way you choose to live. It will not affect you if it is not what you prefer. Preference is not judgment. Judgment is invalidating everything you don't prefer. When you invalidate something, you become equal to it, and thus what you do not want, you become. Okay? And then that's really what's behind the phrase, judge not and you shall not be judged.
Right.
Okay? It means that essentially you become what you hate. So,
haven't you seen that happen to people and institutions? And isn't that an interesting paradox of human dynamics?
People are culturally conditioned to it. If you go into the educational system, which is another entire issue on a cultural level, you'll see all the little ego games and all the stuff that children are encouraged to play. And it's no wonder that some people have a hard time in this kind of system, which is entirely an artificially and synthetically created disaster for trying to evolve in this system. And that's why from another interesting and rather amusing aspect, is so desirable, because it puts out so much challenge.
We're all like the basketball players that practice in wearing rubber galoshes and gloves, right?
Well, you're not. If you're operating at a certain wavelength where whatever you think of manifests itself, sometimes there's not a lot of opportunity to gain wisdom. So you need to forget that and put yourself in a situation where that is not so. So the delay in engaging experience produces wisdom, which doesn't have a polarity, and that produces truth within you, which doesn't have a polarity either.
When you say it doesn't have a polarity, you mean it's not saying good and evil, yin and yang, black and white, that kind of a polarity? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, everybody's truth is true.
But in terms of how are you using the term polarity? Just in terms of duality?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
there can be a fascinating number of justifications to self-impose a limited perspective on the reality in our lives, right? Despite there being a vast amount out there to know, alright? So it's very, very courageous to actually contemplate that I might be self-imposing limits. There might be enormous amount that I don't know about, even about me. And what I'm saying is the variables about that we can master about ourselves. The outsiders we can't necessarily control all the time. We might be in soul contract to be in an accident, an experience, or in a relationship to have outcomes and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's so many variables at play, but the ones we can control, like your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and like the willingness to explore and dedicate time to information. All right. Like most of my videos are quite long, and there's an interpretation in the reality that like most people can focus on about 20 minutes, all right? Well, I can tell you in psychic stamina and psychic defense, there's no like Fred Flintstone lunchtime bells to go and have a break, all right? Everyone puts their tools down and psychic attacks don't stop. As I've shown in other diagrams, particularly in the Galactic Special Forces Part 9, is that when the forces are working at a multi-dimensional level, there is no time where time is imposed on us, and what we can master in that reference is our psychic stamina. So from my perspective, actually being able to focus and listen to sort of teachings for an extended period of time are absolutely allies in psychic stamina, all right? The ability to focus at high-level information for an extended period of time has a beneficial outcome to your psychic stamina, alright? So I make no apologies for making my videos long, alright? So I'm just going to stop the video because when I get to a certain length, they create a new file, alright? And it has a bit of a gap, so I'm just going to stop this. So I'm just going to show you another image, which is basically explaining what I was just saying. So this might be a really complicated thing. So the bottom one is basically a default mode, alright? And the majority of people might self-impose their limits of acceptance, alright? Of expansion. So they only allow themselves to have blinkers relative to all the information they accept. So trying to change people and stuff isn't a very good investment in your energy and life force. What I would do is transmute that into, if I'm seeing in the reality other people have a self-imposed limit on what they're willing to accept, if I'm interpreting that as a reflection of my judgment, because judgment and observation are two different emotions. When you're judging, you're seeing the invalid in yourself in a reflection of those around you. When you're observing, you're appreciating it for all the variables, and it doesn't have a denial aspect to it, right? So if you're judging, you're trying to impose on others, but interpret judging as a reflection of what you're not willing to see. So perhaps when you're seeing people unable to see, all right, maybe there's something it's a bit like seeing totems, like seeing animals and stuff. Like I have totem books by Ted Andrews and stuff, so when I see random animals and stuff, say in my backyard I got a blue-tongued lizard that like a couple of weeks ago it came out in the sun and I hadn't seen it for a long time, so I went out by my crystals and it was like, wow, what's the totem of a lizard have, you know what I mean? So I went and interpreted it. Just see the way you perceive others as a teaching for yourself. Have the courage to invest that energy instead of trying to convince people that they have potentials that they're not seeing. Refocus it back on you. 100% investment of your energy like say if you invest your life force and such things into yourself, all right, you get 100% return, if not more, on that energy. Because energy is, to me, is money is an encapsulation of life force technology, all right? So if you invest time and energy into other people, you're investing your life force. What's a better investment? Contemplating that there is something that you're not seeing and employing the omens of the reality into your own expansion mechanics, or trying to bring new perspectives to someone that the majority of people lack the will to expand, right? They're looking for references and validation and all that sort of stuff. You might be an ally and stuff. And maybe I'm going to talk about welcome energy, right? At some point, where you hold the space to invite people into the higher frequency field that you create, to give them like an energy healing boost to expand for a moment, because that might be the kindling that sparks their unfolding of expansion. But that's another whole big topic, right? So say this one is a metaphor for that. So I've drawn up a bit of more mechanics relative to expansion, alright? So say for this side, alright? Say the middle stream is like what people are willing to accept, alright? Let's say on this side, alright, comes about more information that offers the expansion potential for someone, alright? But there's all the variables that go on to it, but they're willing to accept some and not others, alright? So there's a limit on the expansion. Like they might accept variables that are comfortable, and the ones that are triggery, they don't, alright? So there's this potential of that's been unrealized relative to expansion. Does that make sense? So that could require qualification time, the ability to let go of something that didn't fit their paradigm anymore and stuff, alright? So information and experience and things that happen have no meaning except for what we give it. I might have used the Valvalarian clip relative to information interpretation, right? Because we might have a whole heap of baggage relative to data that requires its qualification or validity or acceptance as a component, alright? It might require dot to dot, like those three together, to triangulate the truth, sort of thing. But what I'm inviting you to do is just keep an expanded mode all the time. The data might not be qualified, alright? Okay? But time, this question mark here could be a time-related variable. So there's an interesting thing I'm going to show next relative to something. And how to interpret time and stuff, right? But yeah, that's investment time. You know, that maybe event is unfolding, and your expansion mechanics are limited to not contemplate variables of data because they have preconceptions associated with them, right? Like say politicians are good and all this sort of stuff, right? You need to be able to trust leaders. Leaders are good people or whatever. And that's probably a horrible example right now, but one very powerful expansion mechanical variable that you can observe about yourself is just when you see something, you know, step away from yourself and go into observer mode and just really contemplate the baggage and components that might come with it. As I said in the last video about survival energy, you can employ it anytime, the survival state example. Anytime. You don't necessarily need the hardship in life to actually find the motivation spark. You can avoid that challenge in life to draw out that potency in you. And so you can, you know, like you can use the pureness of that potent power of an emotional state as motivation. So this other side here is just basically an overview of that's our potential for expansion with all the data variables, alright? And the question mark is what do we need for us to be able to accept it, alright? So this is like reverse engineering your mechanics of awareness, alright? And like I said with the book Malcolm Gladwell, gut reaction is instant, alright? So it's just about enhancement and training and interpretation of technologies our body might already have, okay, that we're just not open to at this point. And they require a bit of practice and empowerment via, you know, muscle training literally of things, alright? So I'm going to show you another diagram which might be interesting. This is actually an opposite of that. So what happens if you are very proactive on your expansion mechanics and you employ all these sort of things and you do a lot of healing and you're very on your game and stuff like that, alright? And you are running at a very high level and stuff, and I've drawn an image of future interpretation, okay? Because instead of like investing a volume of time, alright, and energy into expansion, alright, maybe look at this as a linear 3D aspect, okay, of an event or data that is going to occur in the future that will offer you enormously powerful enhanced reality interpretation. But right at this point you don't have any framework for that, okay? So what happened with me recently is a pretty cool story, alright? And there was a movie that I was really contemplating to see, and I think it was June, okay? And it's in the cinemas and stuff like that, and yeah, I found myself in a frequency, emotional state of really wanting to see it. Like I was very reluctant to go to see the cinema and stuff and watch it and that, but I was willing to do it. Alright, watch it on the big screen. Like I love movies like that and seeing them, but I wasn't feeling up to it. And honestly, like I said in the last video, ambushes, especially the level of healings I've been doing and the earth healings. This recent Sunday I did a massive earth healing, about mid-afternoon Australian time, and so I have to be a bit more disciplined in who I allow into my field, even, you know, just in an email and all that sort of stuff. People get encouraged with anything and want me entangled in their stuff, and I've repeatedly said, alright, not to. So yeah, I was contemplating seeing this movie, and I felt like I had the emotional variable of wanting to see it massively, and it was unrealistic for me to see. What happened was it eventuated that I could actually see it, right, that night. What I realized is that emotional state of wanting, right? You know, you can want stuff and you can go out and bring it into your life. Like say you want food and you go to a restaurant and you have it, or you get takeaway because, you know, your stomach is gurgling and you want that specific thing, and that is a motivational aspect of the wants, alright? You might require, say when I go to my market and being a food whisperer, right? So I might walk past oranges, and I don't eat a lot of oranges and stuff, but for whatever instance, I walk past oranges or mandarins, and I just like, oh my god, my mouth like goes Homer Simpson mode, alright? Like drooling and wanting it. My stomach's just like, yes, 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 like churning upside down, right? And so I have it, and then the metaphor of that is the body is giving me, the body emotional technology is offering a variable of reality and interpretation that I need oranges because I'm actually battling an illness, right? And I need the vitamin C, right? So that wanting relative to food and stuff is different to this wanting of an event, right? And what I realize is there's a subtlety in want that is an interpretation of the future. So my body language interpreting the emotional want technology was that I wanted to experience something, when in actual fact, in some future time component, I would be experiencing it, but I didn't know I was going to actually experience it. So it might be a very hard variable to interpret that way, but what I'm suggesting, alright, is there's a couple of components in the want feeling, alright, that may be an interpretation relative to a future event playing out, alright, and it's that longing, want, emotional state of something that might be an interpretation of a future event playing out. So what I'm saying here is that the emotional technology in our bodies might be to me, aren't reliant on time. You know, it's like doing remote healing, distant healing. Appreciating there is no distance, a bit like the metaphor of the spoon bending in the Matrix, allows you to, that's what I do with my healing. It's like there is no distance. I am here with you. We have a connection, and it doesn't matter. The variable of distance is not a factor. You can heal and affect things anywhere in the universe at any time, alright? And any scale. That's why I'm saying relative to the healing of entire Earth, relative to interacting with Angela Miller, alright? So what I'm suggesting is if you've gone past all the baggage relative to expansion, you're proactive on it, perhaps your feeling technology and gut instincts are very good, and what I'm saying is a emotional state relative to future interpretation could be related to want, alright? So consider that, alright? Like we can reveal want by our actions, sure, but what I'm also saying is that there is a splicing up of the emotional state of wanting, is that there's a few layers in it, and what I've found recently is through this experience of something unfolding that I didn't even know was possible. That want was a very powerful confirmational fact before events unfolded, and I had no frame of reference in my algorithm that things would happen and expansion is possible down the track, alright? So these are all sort of emotional technology, emotional mastery sort of states to interpret, alright? And perhaps my interpretation of want might be an emotional state. You have language and personal dialogue relative to something else, but the mechanics are the same, alright? So when you go from reactive expansion to proactive expansion, your mechanics can change like this, and the dialogue with yourself might be very interesting to contemplate relative to expansion mechanics, alright? And that's why I'm putting this into the emotional mastery part 2, because I feel our emotional mechanics are very much in line with expansion mechanics, right? They are a technology in our body, and our body is the vehicle in this reality, okay? So when I go back to this image, and I'll just use this as the variable, is that, say if we know our limits and the time and stuff like that, alright? And then things unfold and we do need to invest that time and energy into things. What you can do is you can actually, what I do is in my sort of photographic memory sort of thing, I can actually tune back into all the variables related to a previous state, all right, of decision process making and stuff. And so say like I've shared my journey of, say, going to Sydney and stuff, I can go back into all the variables and use my empathy sonar technology and tune back into me, the being I was in the past, and realize that I was being given variables that I had no interpretation of, and then I go and have an experience, and that experience has trauma and negative consequences, but the investment benefit of that cost of trauma is expansion. Okay, so then what you can do is you can go back and track the constraining variables that limited your perception, all right, and you can integrate and appreciate the limits you had, and then drop anything that you don't need anymore. They're just variables in the algorithm of your perception, okay? And what you can do is via that, and trauma is a very powerful expansion, experiential technology, all right? You know, so for me, I needed a complete smashing to be who I was and am, all right? And my smashing was quite fascinating because I was not limited by attachments to materialism and stuff like that, if that makes sense. So if I had a lot of money and I was comfortable and I had a house and I had wife and kids and all that, my expansion potential might be very limited because it would impact those around me. Because I was free and I was independent and I lost everything, my expansion has been absolute. Like, my ability to invest in expansion to be massive, but I enormously respect the situation many people are in, right? It's always a balancing act, and the people around us might have an expectation of who we are, and when we change, we're no longer a match for them. Like, say with my ex, all right, when I shifted relative to choosing love over money, it flipped my frequency and I was no longer a match for her, and I made her actually very polarized to me, which created a lot of trauma and stuff. So I'm saying all these variables because I was naive and ignorant. When you're aware, you can mitigate them and explain them and communicate them and stuff, or agree to disagree and move on and all that sort of stuff, right? So what I'm suggesting here is you can track back things and you can observe yourself and appreciate the previous version of yourself, and then you can give yourself enormous self-validation and nourishment, and realizing how incredible you are for being able to expand based on past events or new data, and perhaps you've been very passive and resistant to change and increasing your expansion mechanics. But then once you go through experiences and you gain more and stuff, then you become proactive and stuff. And so the next layer of technology, like I said, with the time, you know, and interpreting your emotions a lot better and stuff, all right? That sort of stuff kicks in. So some of the things you control are your emotional state, all right? You can actually control it. So there's aspects of, say, the fear spectrum, all right, like lack, needing others to validate and stuff, that you can control, right? You can identify and track back, why do you need them? Where were times where maybe you went through things and you didn't believe in yourself, or you never had belief in yourself, so you don't even know what self-belief is. Or, yeah, your culture you're brought up in and your family sort of scenario and stuff. People have a preconception of who you are, and you are very sensitive and empathic, and you want to accommodate the reality, all right? You want to accommodate those around you. You don't want to create ripples or like trigger other people, because you've had times of very, you know, many of us have been very depleted energy-wise, and actually having people react around us, it's actually adds more cost to our life. So we accommodate where people are, and we box ourselves into not create distortions in our lives based on the emotional states of others. But the key now to me is about honoring yourself. And what you might find is, if you've never stood up to that sort of stuff, when you start doing it, you get enormously empowered by it. And you realize, if you're watching Emotional Mastery Part 1, a lot of people can be run by entities and all that, and they don't even know it, and they'd never be willing to contemplate it or heal. And what might be happening is your enhanced emotional frequency state, because you're willing to live by the motto of expansion mechanics, is infinite, and you love expanding and stuff. Your expansion might be being a reference for others that they lack the will to expand themselves because they're comfort, they got vested interests, or they're wanting to use you for money or whatever. Your expansion does not create benefit for others, right? Because maybe one of the things is that people are using you around you, and they get benefit from where you are, right? So there's all these sort of variables that may be going on, and because you're consciousness genius and you want the best for everyone, you accommodate where other people are. But what I'm saying is, it's a bit more vital that you get spiritually selfish and honor yourself and become a master of your life force and energy, because that might be the thing that allows you to endure what's to unfold. And the expansion mechanics of gaining data that you're not willing to accept, right? Because it is horrible, all right? You don't want to expand. You want to box yourself in. And that it really sucks about expanding awareness, right? Because you have to be willing to explore variables that aren't comfortable. And then what I know in my body, all right? Most people, they don't actually want to feel, right? They want to feel nothing. When you go in meditation, you learn how to stop the mind and brain and stuff like that. A lot of people, they actually, when their feeling technology actually kicks in, it feels very uncomfortable, all right? And so they want to suppress it. And anything that creates feelings in them, they have an emotional lashing out, and they want to gaslight that pulls them out of their state, right? So what I know is that the interpretation of things is actually potentially upside down. Like say for instance, me as a guy, I walk in a shopping mall or whatever, and I see a girl, and it's like, I hate to use this example, but it's a good one. Say if you see someone you're attracted to, your heart races, all right? And that feeling is uncomfortable. It makes you emotionally unstable, and ability to express, all right, yourself in that time, in that presence of someone else that has that trigger, all right? Then all your insecurities and imperfections come up, and all those sort of things, when in actual fact, perhaps they're having the same effect on you, and it's your heart space connecting with the soul that you're meant to interact with. It's going, yes, finally. That's it's engaging the energy to give you a confirmation. And a lot of the confirmational emotional body sort of experiences most of us have, we might be interpreting as threat rather than confirmation, right? And in the past video I said about doing all the walking and stuff like that, it took me a very, very long time to get rid of the emotions that did not benefit me and enhance the ones that do, all right? Because there can be a life force beneficial attribute to the ones that are nourishing and beneficial. Like I said with the body, like fear state and love state, the fear pushes the blood to the arms, fight or flight, and legs for fight or flight, whereas love state, it goes to your organs and nourishes your body and promotes healing and stuff. So a lot of people, they have their emotions wired incorrectly. So that period of very, very harsh, long walkings and stuff, that actually allowed me to splice up each emotion and stuff and have a very good interpretation of each and the subtleties of each, such as, say, want, feel. The want, feel has another layer, which could be interpreting the future, but my dialogue in my body is only understanding it as want, right? So that's like the want is, yeah, I want food, like, because my body requires nourishment, but then there's a want layer that I'm only able to interpret as, man, I'd love to see that movie. But then it unfolded and I had that experience, and it was a very, very subtle difference, but I couldn't interpret it until the event happened, and then I had an experiential reference of, oh, the difference between want for my gut and my body or future interpretation. Okay, so these things, you need to actually engage them. You can't just sit back and not, right? You have to enhance them, and experiential references, experience is the key to wisdom. You can't just do it on theory, you know what I mean? Like doing grid work and missions and stuff, you have to go out into the field. You can't be in your bubble wrap life and not challenge yourself, right? So what I'm suggesting here is, by default, we may have a lot of pre-defaults in a lot of things that require a variable attribute rather than a default mode sort of thing. And you got to see that most people are in default mode with shutting down to, say, the emotional technology of the body, right? The interpretation isn't there. And as I said, the judgment and the observational mode, you can see it in people, and you can ask, am I doing that by default? Am I a passenger to myself? Am I not achieving the greatest, like, potentials of all the variables that I have as an individual? Because we always can expand, all right? This is expansion mechanics. Expansion is infinite, all right? No matter what you think you can perceive, like, there's always more that you can do. And my default mode is, it's a process, not a destination, all right? The process of expansion is the journey to perfection. It's never, you might get to plateaus, right? You might go through achievements and get to plateaus where you can rest, but then there's also next levels and stuff, right? So what I'm going to do is round it up. This is quite long. I've done my best to sort of explore the expansion mechanics and enhance reality interpretation in this video. Expansion mechanics, I just love those linguistics. It was like, wow. Alright, so what I'm doing is introducing that concept here, but I might expand on it later. It might be a whole theme and stuff like that, but what I'm trying to do is associate it with our emotional technology, emotional mastery. I've got mosquitoes. I've got mosquitoes flying around me, so it's a bit of a obstacle course relative to that, but yeah, just contemplate those words. Expansion mechanics. Where do you think you're at in your own expansion and your potentials that you have? As I said, I'm infinite potential, healing, alright? Infinite potential. I love, and trust me, like, the metaphor is like, there's a really cool saying, a master has failed more times in student tries, and trust me, I failed a lot, alright? I'm not calling myself a master or anything. I love the metaphor of being willing to fail versus failure and will to try, alright? One is a enhanced, expansion mechanical attitude to have. One is a very self-imposed limit, alright? Because failure to me is like a incorrect perception of data that might prevent an expansion, but it gives you more data to expand on anyway. You recalibrate, alright? If I show you, say, an event in the future, alright, I'll interpret this a different way. So if you go through something and you fail, alright, but you gain more wisdom from the experience and stuff, so you might be contemplating trying to decide something, you know, you don't have all the information to contemplate it now, but having to make a choice and expand, and there's an event down the road that has consequence, right? But you gain more wisdom from the experience, sort of thing. So I hope this is a very powerful video once more, and if you've gained anything from anything I've offered in the past, I thank you for that investment. I want to inspire your own expansion mechanics. I hope you realize that everything I do is about that. Everything I want to want, alright? The humanity is to be on their game. It's not about me creating a hierarchy of people under me. It's about having allies that I could stand shoulder to shoulder with, and all I do is able to interpret things in a way that might actually assist you in skipping a lot of the hardship steps that I had to go through. If I do that, I know there's enormous karmic positive benefit and stuff, which it's a bit like the movie The Old Guard on Netflix, which I highly recommend. Like the whole, I really hope you go through Galactic Special Forces Part 9, because many of you will probably be living that as well, which you don't know. But nothing nourishes me more than the proactive expansion of people and willing to see a great aspect of themselves. And in Galactic Special Forces Part 9, I said people got to sort of like give themselves relief on the thoroughness and realize the nature of who you are. You will do your best in any moment, so you don't need to be quite so thorough in things. You can give relief and redirect that energy into expansion mechanics, alright? Redirect that thoroughness, maybe from a basis of lack, into self-actualizing and confirmation. I've done all this in the past. I can see my growth. I can look in myself in hindsight, and I have expanded greatly, but I'm loving expanding more. So as I said, healing has been my greatest ally to that in shortcutting time, right? And I'm saying there's a very big time constraint right now, so I'm inviting you to not only explore me, but the healers around you. Things are tough and uncertain and stuff, and perhaps money is tight with people, and that's cool. I'm not wanting anyone to go into trouble in exploring me, but that's an option, right? Because what I do in my field is give a really a no time constraint for expansion and overcoming the blocks and talking about stuff, getting stuff off your chest to engage the technology at a new level, right? Because memories and events are stored in the body, so traumas can come up, and that's why people have a lot of issues and physical problems and stuff. They don't deal with the energy of the trauma and release it and then enhance their expansion mechanics. So I'm going to wind this up because the mozzies are on fire. So yeah, I hope you gain something from this again. I hope you really deeply meditatively contemplate your expansion mechanics. Have you lived up to all your potential, or do you have potential you have but you didn't realize? And now hearing those linguistical words and realizing the relationship to your emotional mastery, there's huge potential for you in that. So I thank you if you do. I thank you if you're just here. I thank you if you've ever listened to anything of mine and you're coming back, or you're about to be the last one and never see me again. But I thank you for your courage to be here on Earth right now, and be willing to challenge your paradigm when everyone around you is probably could be polarized and in denial of stuff, and lack the will to expand themselves. So well done. Pat yourself on the back. Give yourself a self-actualization, confirmation, and yeah, keep expanding, guys. Who knows what's about to unfold. And value your life force, absolutely. Like, put yourself number one, and perhaps when you really empower your expansion mechanics and you be selfish like that, you be an example for those around you, and they want it, right? Instead of you chasing them and investing in them and empowering them in their present state, you be the change that maybe they need to see as well, and that will get the snowball rolling and a lot around you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the courage to be on Earth now. Thank you for your support and interest, and I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Andre Hodge out.
How did you even get home?
Oh, just walked a mile to the McDonald's, used their phone to call a cab. Cab cost $200.
You should have called me at home. I love me some McDonald's, some little apple pies. Delicious. So have you talked since?
2 weeks, just radio silence, so I think that's done.
Yeah.
You know, there's this thing in comp sci, I remember, recursion, where a specific function calls upon itself repeatedly within a program. So in order to solve the big problem, it uses the same small problem over and over as the solution to increasingly complex issues. And that, my friend, is how my software runs.
Sorry about Joe, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah, I still have some stuff of his to give back, but I just can't bear the thought of seeing him right now, you know?
Hey, can I tell you something?
Yeah?
You've got a lot of love in you. More than anybody I ever met. It's bursting out of you. You take in the world in these big gulps, and you can't help but to let yourself get drowned in it. Overwhelms you. It makes you live like you're ready to explode at any minute. They don't see it. I do. It's a burden you carry.
So you don't think I'm just running away? Again?
Oh, it might be.
Thinking about Florida.
Florida? What the hell's in Florida? They got alligators in the daggum Epcot Center or what?
My mom.
Oh.
Man, I'm just tired of saying goodbye, you know?
Recursion.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe you ought to have yourself a heart attack.
Yeah?
Yeah. Sure. You know, when I went down, I did everything I could to stay in the ring. Fought like hell. Had this mantra in my head. It said, stay in it, stay in it, stay in it. But I was losing. I knew at that moment if I didn't give up, that guy's gonna kill me.
I got nothing left to give up.
I know it's you stay, it's hard. If you leave, it's hard. It's all hard. And sometimes it's not even about what you want. It's about what it wants for you. All you can do is listen and see if you can hear what it's saying.
They took our money, our cart, our clothes, everything we had of value.
Except that which is irreplaceable, your lives. How did you come to leave the main road?
Because we were fools. We trusted a stranger.
He was an old man with a kind face and a gentle manner.
Bring them close. Ho Fong, what lesson have you learned from this?
Never trust a stranger.
Kwai Chang, what lesson have you learned from this?
To expect the unexpected.
Ho Fong, in the morning when you are well and rested, you will leave the temple.
When shall I return, Master Khan?
To us, never. You are troubled about your friend Ho Fong?
I do not understand why he was told to leave and not I, when I was equally responsible for trusting the old man.
We do not punish for trust. If while building a house, a carpenter strikes a nail, it proves faulty by bending, does the carpenter lose faith in all nails and stop building his house?
Then we are required to trust, even if we are often reminded of the existence of evil.
Deal with evil through strength, but affirm the good in man through trust. In this way, we are prepared for evil, but we encourage good.
And is good our great reward for trusting?
In striving for an ideal, we do not seek rewards. Yet trust does sometimes bring with it a great reward, even greater than good.
What is greater than good?
Love.
So everything I've done, like the Galactic Special Forces, all that, it's in the algorithm of my Akashic record and my frequency and my DNA and all that sort of stuff. So it's there. So it's like I'm a codex of codes and stuff. So whatever code the individual needs, they get, sort of thing. Whatever's the right time of their journey and stuff in their consciousness Tetris. And this information, it's funny, it's from my perspective, I'm giving you the answers at the end of the like, say, math book and stuff, and I don't know if schools use books anymore, but they used to give us textbooks with the answers in the end, and you weren't meant to cheat. But because I'm giving you the answers on many things, it probably won't make sense because you don't have the context, because to understand the context, you do have to go through that consciousness Tetris, and I might be overlaying an image of a competition of Tetris, so you get, like, unless you get the right blocks for the lower levels, you're not going to comprehend this sort of stuff, and that's all cool. Trust me, the discovery process is awesome here, all right? It's one of the gifts we have in this unawareness realm, and that. So I love that journey of discovery. It's such a gift to get new realizations, and you get that level clear, and then you see things from a totally different perspective, and I love that shift that you get, especially when you're wrong, all right?
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.